Drive safely.
Good afternoon and welcome back to another driving and talking. Okay, so this morning I asked the question, what do you think about mobile speed seatbelt cameras? I'm a bit here and there about them. In a way, I'm for them if it gets people to concentrate more on the road. But the amount of money that they raise compared to the end result for safety is minimal. But if you look at the information when they first came in for Victoria, they said the Monash University Research Centre said that the introduction of mobile phone seatbelt cameras would reduce casualty accidents by 100. So that's their estimate. And if you look at the number of accidents and the deaths as a percentage being deaths, it's there's about 6,000 to 8,000 casualty accidents a year in Victoria, and so if you reduce that down and do 100 as a fraction of 6 to 8,000, you get to quite a small number. So maybe 6, and 2/3 of the accidents, or 2/3 of the mobile phone seatbelt cameras are probably seatbelts. So the number of lives saved through possibly hundreds of millions of dollars a year raised is possibly 2 to 3. I mean, any life saved is worthwhile, but I think there's big money involved, and perhaps there's better solutions. So I think the future holds better solutions, as in automated cars, self-driving cars. Those vehicles will negate the need for so many things, it's unbelievable. But it will take a number of possibly decades before they become mainstream. So imagine, I mean, when cars are fully automated and nobody has a license anymore, even these lights are no longer required. Cars will just negotiate all intersections. So the possibility of far greater productivity in terms of car movements is likely. Speeding fines, non-existent. Red light camera fines, non-existent. Even if you're drug and alcohol affected, it will make no difference because you're not driving. So again, non-existent. And really the number of deaths as a result of fully automated cars will plummet accidents and deaths to such a low figure that it's almost like certain diseases have been eradicated. They haven't been eradicated fully, but they're at a level that they're considered eradicated. So deaths and accidents on the road may become eradicated as a result of automation of driving. However, we're not there yet, so we have to look at the reality of where we are in our society at this point in time. And the next thing I like to take away is enforcement versus safety. they talk about safety, but I've come to realise that, as I've said before, is that the government does a strategy. It gives you something and it takes something away at the same time. So they're fining us for breaking the law, but to make it a little bit more palatable, they're saying it makes it safer. So let's get rid of that safer argument, because it's just, to me, a red herring. If people start basically do obey the law because of the fines, then of course naturally we drive more appropriately, accidents are reduced, and everybody is a little bit safer on the roads. So when you look at it from that point of view, let's not worry about what we get back in return, but the government is simply enforcing its rules. It changes the rules and it enforces the rules. That's their job. I may not be happy with the rules that they put into place, but the rules are put into place so we can actually operate in a fairly civilised manner on the roads in a way that is good for everybody. So from a financial point of view, I think it's unfortunately, very unfortunately, it's largely money raising. And that's bad, because a lot of focus has been put on using this to control behaviour or whatever it may be, but the result is a large amount of money raised and very little impact on our actually road safety. So that's bad. Perhaps it's a focus, but I don't think, maybe they don't know what they can do. I don't know, because if you look at the road accidents, they're not large numbers in any particular spot. Like, if there was a spot where 10 people a year got killed, they could go out and fix that spot immediately. But you're talking one here, one there, one here, and they quote, over the last 5 years there's been X number of deaths or injuries at this intersection. Not over the last 1 year, because that would sound like a pathetic number. Oh look, we've had one accident at this intersection over the last 12 months. Oh, it doesn't sound pretty good, does it? It doesn't justify anything when there's one random accident that's occurring at an intersection. So they extend the period over to suit their arguments, and that doesn't help anybody, just helps them justify it, tell the story, convince people it's believable, and no. So I myself have got a phone holder in this car. It holds it. I avoid touching the phone where possible, and I have a web app that I've developed that just told me literally just then to slow down. So within a second or two of speeding up beyond the speed limit, I'm told to slow down in my own voice. That may change in the future just to be an automated voice, but it tells me. So I'm happy to drive at the speed limit, near the speed limit. So this app, it won't work to say people, because at the end of the day I find people are very self-interested. So those who are already interested in maintaining their speed, not breaking the law, they're looking at the tools. The others who don't care, they'll just drive the way they choose to drive until perhaps they get a fine or something pulls them back into line in terms of their behaviour. Unfortunately. So and if you watch, I've actually watched a learner driver, absolutely perfect example of a young citizen, and I was amazed. I was really proud of this guy. Got his licence, very polite. Within a couple of months, completely wrote off his car, and you can see from his YouTube channel he's a bit of a hoon, bit of a leadfoot. So he played the game to get his licence, just like this car going past. I'm doing 67 roughly, and there is not enough speed to go past, but he obviously broke the law. That's his choice. It didn't impact me. It was safe to overtake, but there was no reason for him to overtake. He couldn't overtake legally, but he chose to do so, and that's what we all do. I actually think in terms of overtaking, you would be crazy not to break the law, because at the end of the day, if you go to overtake on a major road and you stick to within the speed limit and you're trying to overtake a slow vehicle in front of you, you are exposed on the other side of the road an incredible amount. So if you speed up to overtake and pull back in and go back to the normal speed, you actually reduce your likelihood of having an accident and an accident with those around you. So unfortunately there's a conundrum. There's two things. One, we're told to sit back 3 seconds in Victoria from the car in front and don't speed. Both of those things, if you looked at it, if you wanted to overtake a vehicle on a road at 5 kilometres an hour difference between you and them, you probably literally can't see, because of the curvature of the earth, a vehicle coming from the other direction. So you can't overtake at 5 kilometres an hour and be legal, just like that guy was not legal. So there's two things to do when you actually overtake, which to improve your safety is one, to speed, and I'm not a fan of speeding, but you have to look after your own interests and those of those around you, and two, move closer to the car that you're overtaking. So by reducing the time that is the greatest impact on how long it takes you to overtake is not your overtaking time and speed, it's actually the distance between you and the car in front of you and the distance you leave when you're cutting back in. So not the time when you're passing the car, because that's only a few metres, 4.9, about 5 metres, the average length of a car, but the distance between you and the car in front, and then how much time. So 2 seconds, let's say you take off, and 2 seconds distance between the car when you pull back over. And that's why a lot of people actually cut you off when they pull back over, because they're not allowing that 2 seconds, they're bringing it down to 1, and that's because it makes it safer for them. More dangerous for you, because if there's something untoward you have to brake. But I digress. So back onto the mobile phone seatbelt cameras. Who's for them? Who's against them? I'm partly for them, because I think it does actually modify people's behaviour. And I think that's a good thing. And if we actually reduce the speed limit, I sort of go back to a thing I call collision theory. It's just a made up theory by myself, but the way water boils is that the molecules, as they heat, they move more, and when they move more, they collide more. And that's basically like more traffic on the road going faster. The faster the traffic goes, the more probable they are to actually collide with another vehicle. It's more random in boiling water than it is on the road, but you do actually find that in times of where we have a recession and people slow down, that actually has a significant effect on the road toll, more so than what most of the activities of the government are doing. So in hard times where people actually pull back a bit, the end result is that we save more lives and less accidents. So reducing speed, yep, that will frustrate drivers, but it will also, just by its very nature, particularly the number of accidents that happen. mobile phones, it's a hard call, because if you think about the people that are getting fined for seatbelts or mobile phones. So, example, a seatbelt. If somebody's not wearing a seatbelt and they're in an accident, then they go through the window, then they get hurt, their family, their whole community gets hurt, but it doesn't hurt another person on the road. So, but reducing those types of deaths helps the government meet its target, and so it's a number. And if people choose not to wear a seatbelt and take that risk, then ultimately it is a bit of their risk. And so it's that situation where the government is enforcing it against an individual, as opposed to the end result of that person having an accident and affecting somebody else. The risk to somebody else is very low. So, and from what I've seen, 2/3 of these mobile phone seatbelt cameras are for seatbelts, and a lot of people complain. You're not going to fight it. In fact, I actually heard the other day, if you take something to court and fight it and lose, you actually end up with a criminal record. Now, when somebody says they've got a criminal record, it's they've got a criminal record. So, do you really want a criminal record? I certainly don't. Never thought about it, but I have thought about fighting things in court. Never thought that the outcome might be I might create a criminal record. That would be up to the judge. So that concerns me. So if you do want to fight something that you think is unfair or just, you have to make sure you've got pretty strong arguments, and not just I've been hard done by. You've got to have your facts. You've got to have a case. You've got to find it in a unlosable situation, because the system is biased against you. So you really got to make sure you've got all your ducks lined in a row. So mobile phone seatbelt cameras, yeah, I think they're fine. And if you have a look at them, they are the fixed cameras. There's none in Victoria that are fixed. New South Wales, South Australia, they've got fixed cameras. Canberra's got a couple of fixed cameras. You can know those spots very, very quickly. You can look them up. They're easy. So the portable ones, pretty easy. They look like huge giraffes sitting there with a tower going across the road. There's a trailer, there's a big pole, and there's a beam that goes across the road, and they're very obvious. Have a look at my website. You'll see a number of examples. So if you don't see those coming up, you're not paying attention. You can see it for hundreds of metres away. So if you're not paying attention to see that, what else are you not paying attention to? I do feel sorry for the people who get booked, and for very minor situations. They've turned around to get something out of the back of the car and their seatbelt's not sitting. As an example, I haven't seen that, but as an example, a young person sitting in the front seat leant over supposedly to change the music on the phone that was in a appropriate holder, and as a result the seatbelt wasn't covering their shoulder properly. The father gets fined, and hundreds of dollars, $400, $500 for something, whereas a woman was in the same situation. I'm not saying this is because it's woman versus man, but a woman was in the same situation. She took it to court and she said to the magistrate, there is no way known that I can keep an eye on my daughter or my child the entire time and drive safely. And the case was dismissed against her. So there should be a precedent whereby it's unfair for one person to have that case dismissed against them and another person to get fined for exactly the same thing. So, or a very similar thing. So I think there should be some consistency in the law. I think it's pretty hard for the parents when they're trying to control their children, and the children aren't aware. Yes, you can push the stuff into their minds much as you like, but we don't all think all of the time. Now, will that child make different decisions in the future? Probably. But as the person who's the father has been penalised severely for the act of another person. I'm not totally in favour of the person who gets penalised is not the person who actually did the infringement. I think that's a bit unfair. Okay, thank you very much everybody for watching, for watching, and I appreciate you keeping me company today and helping make the time go by as I'm driving around. Until next time, thank you.